I'll just start off by saying what a great atmosphere at the Dish tonight. Our fans showed up, so did East Carolina's. That's what college athletics is about. Two teams going at it on the field. Just a really well-played game, great pitching and defense on both sides. But to see the atmosphere, the energy in the stadium was just awesome. And I spoke about it yesterday, this is why we invested the resources to expand our stadium to have nights like tonight. And excited to see all those fans come back out tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Certainly, runs were hard to come by tonight, and that's a credit to both pitching staffs. Nick Parker went out and was in complete command of the game and all of his pitches. He looks forward to these moments. You can see that. And Jake Berry came in and was really outstanding as well. And I tell you, to win this time of the year against great opponents like East Carolina is, you have to show great poise, right? Everybody's excited, the fans, the players, everyone is, but if you want to have success this time of year, not only do you have to be talented and execute, you've got to show great poise, and the game will come back around to you. No greater example than Ethan Anderson, the knock that he had in the right field to drive in the winning run. I know he wanted better at-bats in his first 3 or so at-bats, but when we needed him the most, that's what I call a winner. Somebody that doesn't succeed a few times, but when the moments at the most important time, you rise up and get the job done for your team, and that's what tonight was about.
Thank you, Coach. We'll open it up for questions for the players. Jeff White.
Nick, what is it about you and East Carolina in the NCAA tournament?
They're always a good opponent, and they bring a great crowd. We also brought a great crowd tonight, so I think kind of just the mix of that. It's easy to get fired up for those kind of games. That first inning was one of the most electric atmospheres I've ever been in. It was pretty special.
Great.
Nick, when you play a team in multiple years like that, do you prepare differently? I know you're obviously focused on what you were going to do, but what's the preparation in that kind of environment or that kind of situation?
It stays the same. I do my approach. We go over our scouting, and we just do what we do best. We go out, we execute. It's what we do. So it doesn't really matter the opponent. The process of getting there is the exact same.
Take one in the back, David Teal, over here to the right. No mic.
Ethan, Ryan talked about first couple of bats maybe not what you wanted. Go through that RBI single, coach there, and what you were looking for.
Right. Going through the arsenal that he had and kind of what I expected to get from the at bat. My first couple at bats, wasn't what I wanted to do in the situation, and I know with runner on third, 2 outs, I just had to get a base hit, score the go ahead, the run, and a tight game that not a lot of runs got scored. That was my biggest focus, was just trying to put a ball in play that allowed me to get to first base, and maybe didn't barrel the ball exactly how I wanted to, but I stayed inside of it and just happened to find grass.
Preston.
Just when your offense is going through a day like this, when it's tough pitching, what was it like kind of watching Nick, do what he did today?
I love the pitcher battle that we had today. Being on defense and supporting Nick from the field, and whenever there was a strikeout here in the crowd, roar, or just getting 3 outs, and especially towards the end of the game, the 7, 8, 9, just hearing the crowd at the end of the game. Nick pitched amazing. I'm not sure when someone got on second base, but it felt like I was never holding anyone on. It was just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Jerry and then David.
Nick, can you just talk about what was going on in your head before you went out in the 6 and the 7, just down deep, what you had to tell yourself, and that strikeout pitch in the 7th was your 100th pitch of the night. Just how gratifying was that?
It's always it's always nice to give your, just go deep in the game for your team. I couldn't do what I did without the defense that was played tonight. They helped me out a lot. A lot of early contact, a lot of good ground balls. The infield played stellar, outfield played stellar. So I wouldn't have a chance to get that deep in the game without them. And I think just, getting ahead and being aggressive sets you up. That's kind of my approach. Every inning, it doesn't really change whether it's the first or the last.
David and then Kip.
Nick, I believe East Carolina started 6 hitters who started against you last year. Was there a certain familiarity there that made you even more comfortable tonight?
I would say more comfortable. I think we definitely watched the outing from last year. We saw what we did well, what we didn't do well. We kind of just watched it objectively. And so that was part of our scouting report. It's nice when you face a team once before, you've faced a couple of them before. You see what they do well and you see what your strengths are, so you kind of have some ground to go off of rather than just not ever facing someone before.
Kip.
Yeah, Kip Coons, Press Box View. Nick, two-part question. First, you got to like that northeast wind blowing in. Not common for here.
Yeah, it's always nice. It gives you a little bit more to challenge with.
And also, only 5 strikeouts tonight, which kind of below what you normally produce. But it seemed like when you needed one to get out of a jam, you got one.
Yeah, they're really good offense. They don't. I think they take a lot of pride in not striking out, making us work for outs. So that's kind of what we had to do tonight. We had to work for outs. And sometimes when the situation calls for it, you can dig a little bit deeper and try and get one yourself.
Shotgun.
Chuck Sprung, D1 Baseball. Nick, do you change your approach at all when you're facing a lineup that has so many lefties in it? It seems like you use your curveball a lot early, whereas the changeup, is obviously starting the best pitch.
Yeah, I think going in, we knew how many lefties they had, so it was part of the game plan. We kind of thought ahead of how we wanted to attack so many lefties and, still use the entire arsenal in a certain way.
And Cliff Godwin said that, basically you're a pitcher that every time you think you know a pitch is coming, something else comes. How do you do that as a pitcher? How do you keep the other team guessing the entire time?
I give a lot of credit to our pitching coach, Drew Thomas. Me and him are, between every inning, we're talking back and forth about kind of what we want to do and approach guys. And I have all the trust in him when he's out there, and he's working with me both ways. I think we're a good duo together, kind of thinking the game.
Let's have a little bit of fun with this, all right? Nick has been fortunate to have a pitching coach at 2 different places, both named Drew. Drew Thomas and Drew Dickinson here. So just want to correct that.
All right, any other questions for the players? Okay, you guys can stay, you guys can hang out, or you guys can head back to the locker room. If not, let's start with questions for Coach with Jeff White in the front.
Brian, you've often said that winning the first game in a regional is great, but it doesn't mean a whole lot if you don't then win the second one. You're 2-0 in the championship game now. How do you feel about kind of this situation?
Well, you feel great. Certainly every tournament's different, but obviously there's an advantage being 2-0. You only have to play a maximum of 4 games, right, from a pitching staff standpoint. So, we've made it through the regional, super regional, and to Omaha before losing one of the first 2 games. It's happened before, but certainly there's an advantage from a starting pitcher standpoint, and so I'm just glad that we're 2-0 and get a chance to rest tonight and tomorrow and see who our opponent is tomorrow night.
Could you have asked for much more from your starting pitcher this weekend so far?
No, I mean, to think that somebody will go out this time of the year against a great offensive opponent in East Carolina and pitch through the 7th inning, you just can't script that. And, because of the amount of left-handed hitters East Carolina had in the lineup, our plan coming into the game is if we had a lead late in the game, that we were going to go to Jake Berry to bring us home. And so Fortunately, it worked, and it started with Parker just being in complete command. I mean, that's as impressive. It's not a bunch of strikeouts, but the mix and match and be able to use all 4 of the pitches is as great as you'll see. I mean, that's why you love college baseball. You'll see that in college baseball. You don't see it in the major leagues with somebody that won't throw a ball over 90 miles an hour. So Nick Parker is a great college pitcher. And somebody had asked a question earlier about his outing against East Carolina last year when he was at Coastal. That outing, Coach Dickinson and myself watched that outing, and that is what 100% sold us on saying we need to try to get this guy to Virginia this year. To do that, what he did last year in their ballpark is tough to do, and it showed the grit and the poise that he has to win at this level.
David Teal.
Brian, Beal had only walked 9 hitters all season.
Right.
You guys worked him for 3,
Yeah.
including O'Donnell's there in the 7th, which proved crucial. What was the scale on him? What was the approach? Anything different, or was it just pure luck?
Well, I can tell you, David, it wasn't to take pitches. You look at his numbers. He's at the top of their stat sheet from an ERA standpoint. He's got a lot of strikeouts, very few walks. He has really good stuff. I mean, everybody they ran out of the bullpen had great arms, and so it was to attack him, and fortunately our guys fouled balls off. We talk a lot about a 2-strike approach and hang in there for one more pitch, and fortunately we had enough guys do that to create the situation to allow Ethan Anderson to come up there and get that RBI. So, it's just when you're facing somebody that pounds the strike zone like he does, you just got to go get them. And fortunately, our guys continue to battle. The NCAA tournament does different things to people. I've never thought Oklahoma starter. Last night he came into the tournament with 17 walks, right, as a starting pitcher, phenomenal. And sometimes in the NCAA tournament that zone shrinks a little bit, and so. We just feel fortunate that we had those opportunities.
Great.
Coach, obviously, we've seen your offense and what it can do.
Right.
What was going on from East Carolina's perspective to limit what you could do offensively tonight?
Yeah, well, the first part of the game, there was a point in time, I think it was the 3rd or 4th inning, we had 6 hits and only had 1 run, right? So that can get frustrating, right? Because we had opportunities to maybe open it up a little bit, but when you're facing high-level pitching, that speaks to their execution of pitches. And we had opportunities and just couldn't get them, and that's where I talk about the poise that our team showed, that they didn't get frustrated. They stayed in there and continued to fight, knowing at some point the game's going to come around to you. But I'll tell you, as a coach, when you're managing a game, you look at those missed opportunities like, gosh darn it, if Parker doesn't hold them there, I hope those don't come back to haunt you. And fortunately, he did a great job. We played great defense and just had enough.
What's your reaction in a game where a lot of balls are hit hard right at people?
Yeah.
That the game-winning hit is one that's not built up.
Yeah, isn't that funny how the game works? I thought we hit a lot of balls hard, and to center field in different spots, and they did as well. And sometimes that's just the game, right? But that's where I speak to, if you continue just to hang in there and stay positive and believe in yourself and each other, that you hope that the opportunity is going to open up at some point, that sometimes it's a dink that gets in. There was one down the left field line that we had, and Anderson's, like he said, it wasn't barreled up, but it was just enough that to get out there to score the run. So it can be frustrating, especially when you hammer the ball like we do a lot of times, but against the great high-level pitching that you see this time of the year, runs can be tough to come by.
Do you change your offensive approach at all when the wind is blowing in, whether it be the at-bats themselves, or just to maybe put more action on?
Yeah, great question. You know, usually in our ballpark, the wind's not blowing in like that. A lot of times it's going out, right? And the wind, I think, impacts the game of baseball more than anything, right? Whether it's blowing out or blowing in, it's kind of the X factor. I'll tell you where it does impact. Typically, we don't bunt Ethan O'Donnell, right? But the first inning, O'Farrell gets on, and you might change things a little bit to put some pressure on them to get a guy in scoring position and bunt him in the first inning. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for us, but you do that because Geloff and Teal are coming up, and there's just one knock, and all of a sudden you're on the scoreboard. So I think there's a little bit to it. I also think it's how you play your defense as well. It's going to be tough to hit a ball over somebody's head. And Anthony Stefan, his last at bat, I mean, he absolutely smoked that ball as hard as a ball as he can hit, and still couldn't get it out of there. So certainly it played a part in the game.